here at the Black Art Expo here in Jenkintown at the Piazza, which is about an hour away from Philadelphia. And I'm here with two friends, a new friend and a very old friend. I'm going to start first with my new friend. Please tell us a little about yourself, Charlie.
Okay. Elevator pitch. Charlie Palmer, born in Fayette, Alabama, a little small town. Raised in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Got into art probably at the age of 4. Went to the American Academy of Art and the Art Institute in Chicago, where I graduated and started my career as a graphic designer and illustrator. And for the last 18 years or so, I've been a fine artist.
All right, I'm going to ask you a dumb question. If you were a color, what color would you be and why?
Good question.
That is a really good question.
That is a good question.
So many
I'm glad he's not
colors to
asking me
choose
that
from.
question.
You know what?
That is a good question.
What? A friend of mine termed, like, I love this term called bright black. So it would be black.
Bright
And
black.
why black? Black is the combination of all colors together. So if I was to choose one, it would be that one.
What? Oh, okay, I have to ask. What is the difference between bright black and regular black? Because I would choose the color graphite black, which is different kind of black.
Black is black, though.
No, it's not.
You know, I really do believe that, like, black is, again, that's all of that, you know. What would be the difference? Like, black
Okay,
is
if I
black.
lay down charcoal black next to graphite black, it's a different black.
Because you know what? Because, like, I learned a long time ago when I was painting.
Sorry.
Like, when I was like, there's no such thing as white.
True.
And when I point out, it's like in this room right now,
Yeah.
there's at least 25 different whites. And so I explain when you're painting and you're using white, add color to it. Because
Right.
color reflects, white, like it kind of pulls in colors, whatever color is around it. Let's go into that. And
Okay.
so that's what happens in whiteness.
So would
Even
you-
with white people, that there is a culmination of
Yes.
all kinds of things that are influenced that makes white white.
I agree.
Is it so when it comes to black,
Would you
again,
agree
there
that-
might be variations.
Would you
of
agree
black.
that black is the absence of color, or
White
meaning
is-
the
white
full,
is
the
the absence of
fullness,
color.
the fullness of all of the spectrum?
I think that white is
The other way
absence of
around.
color.
Yeah.
And that's how white is influenced by
Right.
everything else that's around it. Black is a combination of everything around
You're
it.
right.
Yeah.
So, Michael,
But I want to. Yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
going to ask you to introduce yourself. Michael from Toronto.
Michael Gibson. I was born in a city 2 hours west of Toronto called London, Ontario. I was born and raised there. I started doing art right around 6 or 7. I was fortunate enough to go to an arts high school where we got a full arts education, everything from photography, ceramics, textiles, lithography, all of that. In high school, then I went to Sheridan College and I studied illustration. And then I went to graduate school, but dropped out of graduate school. I went to graduate school for graphic design and computer graphics. Dropped out of graduate school to start a clothing company with Mark. We did a clothing company for a few years. While I was doing that, I was a graphic designer and illustrator, and I've been doing art ever since. Using that to focus on my own.
Gotta move that.
Oh, what happened? What happened?
There was a phone. The phone was.
Oh, okay. Anyway, where was I?
Well, actually, I'm going to stop you there because I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay.
'Cause you mentioned that you had different mediums that you studied. So if I were to throw a clump of clay at you, what would you mold first?
This guy's killing the question.
I love this though. I love
Great question.
yeah.
I normally don't get that question. I don't know. I'm kind of a in the moment guy when it comes to my clay. It's funny because the fun of doing art in different mediums is allowing yourself to experience it in a different way. So I'm very technical. I'm very thought out when I draw. But when it comes to clay, I'll just play with it.
Okay.
Yeah, I would just play with it. I play with it. I'm not very good on the wheel. I was never very good sitting at the wheel.
Was it the electric wheel?
Yeah, that's the wheel. I was taught to do that, but I was never really proficient at it. So I was better at doing things by hand and building up my pots by hand and sculpting things that way versus throwing on, they call it throwing, versus throwing something on the wheel. Yeah.
How would you, do you think that you would have been better if you were using a kick wheel?
I tried a kick wheel, but there's just too much going on for me. I like having my foot and like with my hand, there's just too much going on. And part of why I wasn't good at throwing was because I got enamored with this thing spinning in front of me and I couldn't focus. So I was never very good at it. I was always better at sculpting when there was nothing moving and I could just focus. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Charly, one of the things that I did notice about your artwork is that, speaking of sculpture, your work does have this almost like a Svengali kind of effect. It has a 3D. It seems like your pictures, your paintings, what you do is kind of draws people in. Do you intentionally make your two-dimensional art very 3D in effect?
The best way to answer that is no.
I was hoping you would have a longer, more in-depth answer.
You know what? I don't think there's very little consciousness to anything that I do. It's more spiritual, and it's just following where it leads me. It's like, I always talk about when it comes to art, I became a better creator when I realized there was a greater creator, and that I'm merely a vessel, and that if I step away and just be used as that vessel, that instrument, I can wow myself by what happens. Because I meet artists all the time, they're talking egos, because it's so easy to think, you're given this blank canvas or whatever, and you create this amazing piece of work, and you honestly believe it's you.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, when you realize it's not you,
No. Yeah.
and you start to accept that, then you can step back and say, wow, that is amazing. I say this jokingly, but I say it seriously. The advantage to being a vessel is that the money still comes to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you're like, I will receive this money,
Yeah.
but you don't understand that the greatness that happens isn't you, but it's something that is like, God has chosen you to express Him. And so a lot of stuff that happens, and I learned to listen to that too, because I can be on a mission. Like, I gotta get this project is due tomorrow, and this canvas was like, I'm ready. I'm ready right now. And I'm like, this is due tomorrow, and I'm ready. And I've learned to say, I'm sorry, I'm gonna miss that deadline, or not. I may have to stay up all night to finish that, but I'm gonna go over here. And whenever I do that, I step back and say, wow.
Yeah.
Like, look at her or look at him. He or she was ready. But when you recognize that, so it's not a conscious, like, let me create this form and create this feeling or anything like that, because I often will step back from something and say, like, what does that mean? What is this story? What is this piece about? Until that person comes along and says, that's my mother, or that reminds me of where I was raised. And like, that's what it was about. It was about that person who said, I gotta take this home.
You know,
It wasn't about me.
Yeah.
I just want to repeat one thing you said. God has chosen you to express Him.
I believe that.
pretty
I
powerful.
believe that's true.
That's pretty powerful.
If you understand that, because you could also again get wrapped up and say, I'm godlike. I'm
No,
godly.
yeah.
And you're like, no,
No.
it has nothing to do with you.
It's
It has
from
to
a
do
place
with
of
everything.
humility. That's what I would say. It's being an artist is a very humbling experience.
Yeah.
It really,
get
really
that,
is.
You get that.
Yeah, it really, really is. And for me, the humility comes in is that I find it amazing and very humbling that you could take something that wasn't there. And look, pencil is pencil. Anybody can, you know what I mean? Everybody knows how to use a pencil. But to make strokes on a piece of paper and then it becomes alive is very humbling to be able to do that.
Your pencil work, didn't interrupt, but your pencil work, it borders on perfection. What allows you the patience to get to that place?
Here's the interesting thing. My mind doesn't work that way. A lot of my work and the intricacies about my work is about what to leave out. So for me, greatness is partly about what you choose to leave out. Because you can't put everything in. As detailed as something is, you cannot put everything in there. You have to choose to leave things out. Now the question is, what are you going to choose to leave out? And where? And how? And why? So I think photorealism is really choices on what to leave out, because no human being could put in what God puts in. You just can't do it. So there's that, and then there's, Charly and I were talking about this yesterday, I try to draw what you can't see. It sounds crazy, but I try to draw thoughts, feelings, emotions, atmospheres, textures. These are things that bind all living things. And so I try, my goal is to reach, I'm reaching for that. And it's interesting you mentioned God, I'm reaching for that, which you can't see in life, but are the most important things in life. Yeah.
When I'm listening to your answer, it reminds me of a quote, Basie. And I think that Ellington may have also referenced it. It was, the most important notes are the ones you don't play.
Yeah, space. It's the same thing in music. Yeah, space. Right. So you may look at some of my work and say, wow, it's incredibly detailed, but there's a lot of space. I'm trying to leave that space. Life is about space.
I'm looking at the piece right above your head there.
Oh yeah, that is about space.
And I'm like, I see absolutely no space. He filled in every little corner of it with something that's absolutely magical. You know what I mean? Like, cause I was gonna say it earlier and I'm gonna say it now. It's like Michael Jordan said, it's not the shoes. You know, he did not play great basketball because he had a great pair of shoes.
It's true. Yeah.
He was God-given and chosen to be and do what he was doing. And like, it's funny, like listening to you talk, and I'm like looking at the drawings and saying, that's a pencil. But not everybody can do what you do with a pencil. You know what I mean? So it's clearly a gift where you've understood that medium and you've made it absolutely work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it is a pencil, but very few people can do anything remotely close to what you can do with a pencil. You know?
I feel the same way about you. So
I receive that. Thank you.
Michael, he did that to you. Now you do it to him.
Okay, it's very easy for me to do. It's very easy. It's very easy. There's a few things. Number one, Charly's one of the few artists, and I've said this before, he could paint the alphabet and I would love it. It's just the way that he paints. And then on top of that, and this is probably this is more important to me. When you meet artists that you look up to, you at least for me, you hope for certain things. But he's a better person than he is an artist. But he's a phenomenal artist. You understand what I mean? So I understand more about him as a painter, spending time with him, not the other way around.
Okay, so he's not Faulkner, and for those of you who know, an amazing writer who is also an amazing asshole.
That's what I mean, right? You're afraid. It's the same when I met Paul.
Oh yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah.
incredibly generous, humble, kind. Same when I met Cal, same thing. You know, and I guess it's just me. I'm just blessed to know really phenomenal artists that are better people than they are artists, even though their art's like, to me, it's like, you know. But you're kind of, as me, I'm younger than those guys. You're kind of, at least initially, you're afraid because you hope that they're not. And then you're so excited when they aren't. So, yeah.
Thank you. I received that.
Yeah.
I'm so uncomfortable with that.
I know you're uncomfortable. I know, but I'm giving it to you anyway.
Well, I look at it this way. When people say those things, it can make you feel uncomfortable, but it's only a testament that basically you're living your life as you feel you should live it. So I agree with them. I find you to be humble. I think but your genius is knowing that you're not great, that God is great. So I definitely agree with that. Now, you mentioned several artists who are like, you know, really very important artists. How did you two meet? How did you come together? What's the common denominator?
Just looking, right?
Was it just looking?
Yeah.
Or was it in Philly?
What was in Philly? Oh,
Yeah.
you know, I think you had been doing it for a while. I didn't do it that long.
When did you do it?
I don't
By the way, we're
remember.
talking about
October Gallery.
October Gallery.
Yeah.
When
I did
you
that
do
2
it?
years.
What year?
And I can't remember when.
Was it?
'Cause
It's in the 90s, no?
It ended my traveling career.
Was
Literally,
it mid or late 90s? Can you remember?
It had to be late. It had to be real late.
Because
It may
I
be in
met-
the early 2000s.
I met Paul, and I met Cal there.
I had a really great experience in Philly because two things that happened. Like I said, literally, it ended my traveling career because I realized this is not for me. Because I'm not the person to travel many miles,
It was rough.
set up a show,
Oh, it was rough.
and sit there for 3 days.
No, it was rough.
It was like, this is a lot
it
of
was
work.
rough.
I can't do this. I had bought all
Yeah,
the state-of-the-art
I
equipment.
still have that,
But
yeah.
I did that, and after that show was over with, I packed up my stuff, called up an artist friend in Atlanta and said, listen, I'm coming back tomorrow. I'm selling everything I have for some crazy low fee. I said, because if I don't, I'm gonna do this again, and I never wanna do this again.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? I never
Okay.
wanna do another one of these shows. I'd rather create the work and let somebody else do it, because my role is not to sell it, my role is to create it.
Yep.
But that was
I understand
Philly,
what you
Philly
mean.
broke me
I
for that.
understand what you
But I
mean.
had an experience, there's an artist out of New York, his name is Tafa.
Okay.
Tafa's an African artist who does a lot of really great abstract work. And the one thing I would do, especially when it was slow, and it was slow a lot for me when I was there, is I would walk around to look
That's
at other
it.
art. I
That's
was going
it.
around looking at, wow, look at that.
Yeah.
And look at that. And I'm moving
Yeah.
around. And it was Tafa's work that one year. And it's like, every time I went into his booth, it's like, where's this guy, right? And I did that. It turned out, like, for the whole show, Sunday night, last day of the show, he came around and we got to talking, not knowing that it was him. And he was saying, man, I've been trying to meet you, but every time I come to your booth,
You're gone.
So I'm like,
yeah.
well, cool, like nice
What's
to
your
meet
name?
you. Who
Yeah.
are you? He said, I'm Tafa. I'm like, man, I've been trying to meet you.
Yeah, yeah.
Every time it's like,
Yeah.
but it was that whole idea of like really having a love for other artists,
Yeah.
you know, and that creativity and everything like that. But I could swear that I was introduced to you through just
Eileen.
looking. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I tend to agree with you.
Okay.
I agree with you.
Who's Eileen?
Oh, Eileen is the one who put this show together. She is the owner of Just Looking Gallery, which is at Hagerstown in Maryland. And
She's light-skinned. She's real light-skinned.
super light skin.
Real light-skinned. With red hair. Light-skinned.
Red hair.
with
Yeah.
Yeah, I talk, what I talk about, and I tell people all the time, it's like, no matter what's kind of going on, I have a relationship with her. And I don't know if you know this either. Like, I try to be very loyal to people that have been loyal to me. Eileen and Bob, when I met them, were the first people that said, we want to represent you,
Yep.
when nobody else would represent me. And so because of that, there's no way I'm going.
I have the same. I feel the same way.
Yeah.
I met them before they knew who I was.
Okay.
So you remember the Black Fine Art Show in New
Oh,
York?
absolutely.
I was looking at it from afar, in Toronto saying, man, I gotta figure out how I'm gonna get my work into this show, because I gotta go, I gotta be there. And early on, I don't know, maybe it was the third year, I can't remember what year it was, but anyways, I've been trying to get in. There was this little gallery out of Montreal called, I can't remember the name of the gallery, but he sold Haitian art, and he sold some Canadian art, and I had a Miles Davis piece, and I called everybody on the list. Nobody would touch me, and that was back in the days when you sent out your CDs and you sent out, you know, your little tearaways and all that type of stuff. I followed up with everybody, and I called him, and he's like, "Oh wow, I love your work, but I only have room for one piece," and it was kind of late. He said, "I'd already packed up my crate." He said, "If you can get it there,
Wow.
I'll hang it." I was like, bet. I got on a plane, I flew to New York, I helped him hang the booth, put it up there, and then he said, "You know how they used to have those VIP nights?" He said, "I'm sorry, I don't have tickets for you, but you know, I'll have your work here." And it sold the first night.
Wow.
So then I had a few dollars in my pocket, and so I spent the rest of the show wandering around each booth, seeing where my work would fit in. But I didn't approach anybody. I just took their card,
That's how you do
met
it.
them, and I said, "Hi, great booth, fantastic work," took their card. And then I got back and followed up with them. And we laugh about this now, she played 20 questions with me on the phone before she would even represent me. And the first question was, because I didn't sound black, "So are you black?" And I was like, who is this woman? Like, she's asking me. Because I only represent black artists. I was like, okay, you know, check.
All right.
And then she proceeded to grill me for an hour. And then she finally was like, okay, well. And that was the first gallery in the States
Okay.
that I've been with her ever since.